Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 107, Thoughts, Words, and Deeds. Hey, before we get started today, real quick, if you're looking for a Christmas gift for a friend, family, or loved one, and you want to introduce them to the concept of Stoicism, boy, have I got the gift for you. It's my own book, In Valor 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Walmart, anywhere you get your books. But if you are listening to this during the week of December 2nd or the week of December 9th, feel free to shoot me a message. Message me through the website, message me through the Substack, message me through my Instagram, message me however you can get in touch with me. Do so if you're interested in buying a signed copy of the book. I have probably 15 or 20 copies lying around here from a recent order, and I'd be happy to personalize and sign and send those out to anyone who wants one for Christmas. Just let me know, and I will get the book out into the mail, get you a payment link. You can pay via PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Square, whatever makes the most sense for you. And on the side note, if you represent a law enforcement department or agency, please let me know if you're interested. If you've got end-of-year money that you're trying to get rid of, that you're looking for ways to spend, and you want to get bulk copies of my book for your agency to hand out to your officers to help with a resilience program or wellness program, message me privately. I've worked with a couple of departments this year in getting bulk copies of my book shipped out, and I can get you a much better rate than you can get buying them bulk on Amazon. If you reach out to me directly, I can work with my publisher to get copies out to you at below retail price, and it actually works out better for me because it allows me to make a little bit higher. I get a little bit more of a commission than I would through a retail provider when I do it wholesale. So if you represent an agency or an entity and you want to get these books in bulk as an end-of-year initiative, please let me know, and I will help you with that as well. So getting on to the show, thoughts, words, and deeds. Let me start you out with a quote from Epictetus that I think many of you are going to love. To live a life of virtue, match up your thoughts, words, and deeds. Well, that's simple advice, right? You know, the idea of saying one thing and doing another, it's been heavy on my mind this week. Just, with current events going on, we have, for the last several years, as the president's son was going through criminal investigation, ultimately a trial, prosecution that ended in two trials that ended in convictions, and is about to face sentencing here in the month of December. All through that, the president, who is the head of the executive branch, the Department of Justice falls under his purview. All of the Department of Justice's all of their powers are delegated by the chief executive, so the chief executive being Joe Biden. Kind of an awkward Thanksgiving when when the Department of Justice that you lead and are in charge of, and whose powers are derivative of your position as president, is prosecuting your son. And but through it all, he's insisted time and time again, I will not pardon my son. I will let the justice system play out. I will respect the jury. I will respect the judge. I will not pardon my son. I will not pardon my son. I will not pardon my son. Every time he's been asked, he hasn't been, equivocating on it at all. He is time and again, both him and his representatives have said, I will not pardon my son. Well, lo and behold, on Sunday evening, it was announced that he had issued a pardon for his son, and not just a pardon for the criminal acts that he had already been convicted of, the federal crimes for tax evasion, for federal gun crimes that he had been convicted of in 2 judicial districts. No, he had issued a blanket pardon for any and all criminal activity that he may have committed over a period of 11 years. That's a huge amount of time. Now, for me as a former 1811 who did large-scale, long-term criminal investigations, often worked with IRS CID, I know how frustrating and irritating it must be for those guys who spent untold years of their lives working on cases, prosecuting an individual only to have a pardon be issued. But I'm not really interested. I'm interested in that from a law enforcement perspective, but I'm not really interested in this from a political perspective. The reason I bring it up today and in the context of today's episode is that quote from Epictetus I think is directly relevant. To live a life of virtue, match up your thoughts, words, and deeds. Now, you cannot say into every microphone and have every person who's representing you say for month after month after month, every single time asked unequivocally, I will not do X. Say it again and again and again and again, and then ultimately turn around and do X. Now, I don't think anyone was shocked or surprised the president would pardon his son. I think, it's one of those interesting moral questions that if you're the only person in the country who had the opportunity to save someone you loved and cared about from federal prison, whether they were guilty or not, would you do it? And I think, if you're a dad, I'd like to think that we would all be a little bit more stoic in our resolve and that we would recognize that the just and right thing to do would be to stay out of the way. But I think it would be very, very difficult for any of us who are parents, who are fathers, to allow a child to go to federal prison when you had the power to stop it. So it's an interesting moral discussion. And that's essentially what Epictetus is saying here. If you want to live a virtuous life, if you want to be a person of virtue, it doesn't just have to be when things are easy. It's easy to be virtuous when you don't have this sort of conundrum that you're faced with. It's much harder to be virtuous, much, much harder to be virtuous when you're facing a situation like this, where you know that the easy thing to do and the right thing to do are probably not the same thing. The right thing to do is to abide by those words that you spoke and said, is to stick to your guns, is to say, I said that I would get out of the way and stay out of the way, and I'm going to continue to do so. That's the right thing to do. But that's also a very hard thing to do. And that's what Epictetus is saying. He's saying you have to match up your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. It's not enough to say, I'm going to do this or not going to do that. You actually have to stand by and commit to action in alignment with those thoughts and words when the time comes, when it's hard to do so. There's a lot of examples that we can use in law enforcement to highlight this point. Let's talk about Giglio versus United States first. Everybody knows this one. If you're in law enforcement, you know that Giglio versus United States is a 1972 Supreme Court case involving the prosecution's obligations in regard to criminal discovery and disclosure. Essentially what it says is, in Giglio, the court held that the prosecution has a constitutional obligation to disclose all information or material that could be used to impeach the credibility of a prosecution witness. So not just the police officer, but any other witness, right? But that includes law enforcement officers. And the court further held that any suppression of that evidence violates the defendant's right to a fair trial as guaranteed by the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. So let's get into brass tacks. Let's say you are a law enforcement officer and you lied to a supervisor, or you lied in a case, you lied to obtain a search warrant. That information impeaches your credibility, right? If it becomes clear, if there's a integrity investigation and they determine that you created some sort of integrity violation in your workplace, and then you go to testify in front of a jury, you have an obligation, the prosecution has an obligation to inform the defense of that integrity violation, of that issue that you were involved in that was adjudicated, that you have been adjudicated as a liar, as somebody who has sworn something that wasn't true, has done something that violated your integrity. And that if they don't notify the defense of that, it could violate that individual's due process rights under the Fifth Amendment. So again, when a law enforcement officer commits a truthfulness violation, like lying on the stand or falsifying a report, they're going to be forever stained by Giglio, because every time they step into a case, the prosecutor has an obligation to disclose that information and that conduct to the defense. So for that reason, we all know violating Giglio is career death sentence. It's career suicide, right? If you commit the Giglio violation, no attorney is going to work with you. You're not ever going to be able to get the case across the finish line because you've got integrity issues. And that is going to bleed into every case that you work. So to have a virtuous and successful career, we all know that our thoughts and our words always have to match our deeds. We cannot lie. We cannot lie. We cannot get on the stand and lie. We have to, when we're under oath, tell the truth. We can't equivocate. We can't wiggle. Even if it hurts us in the short term, it's going to hurt us much, much more in the long term if we don't tell the truth. So we have to maintain that level of virtue in our professional life, but we should also try to maintain that level of virtue in our personal conduct. We got to maintain it in our professional careers, ensuring that our thoughts, words, and deeds match our actions, or our thoughts, words, and deeds match. We should be doing that in our personal life as well. We should be avoiding damaging our reputation in ways that we can never get back. Think about that with your wife. Think about that with your kids. You make a promise and you don't follow through. You become someone who doesn't keep your promises. You tell a lie, you become someone who is a liar who lies. You lose credibility. You lose the ability to be trusted in the future when your thoughts and words don't line up with your deeds. Now, bringing it full circle, it's December. President's term ends in January. I think everybody and their mother knew that this was likely going to happen before he left office. That by the administration losing the re-election bid, even though the president himself wasn't on the ticket, his running mate was, that this was probably going to happen because there's no guarantee that an incoming administration, and there's no reason for an incoming administration to grant a pardon to the president's son. But what bothers me about it isn't so much the issuance of the pardon. I think it would be reasonable for almost any parent to say, look, I know that this is not going to be well received, but I'm the only person on earth who has the ability to keep my son out of jail, and I'm going to do so, just like I think almost any father would. That, I think, would at least be something that, though I wouldn't be in favor of, I think would be understandable. It's the lack of alignment between thoughts and words and deeds that truly make that an egregious act. Truly make it an egregious act. And that is exactly what Epictetus is saying here. To live a life of virtue, we have to match up our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. We simply cannot sit there and bold-faced lie months and months and months on end, say one thing and then do another, if we ever wish to be trusted, if we ever wish to be seen as an individual with integrity. To be virtuous, to be successful, both in our career and our personal lives, we must always make sure that our thoughts and our words are in alignment with our deeds. All right, folks, I'll leave you with that little current events wrapped up in a 2,000-year-old piece of wisdom, but I think it's applicable to what you do on a daily basis, to your job, to how you act both on and off the job. And I thought you'd appreciate that reference. So carrying on real quick before we go, if you haven't done so already, sign on to the stoicresponder.substack.com. You can sign up there for free so that you get this podcast delivered directly into your email inbox. Over the break that's coming up at the end of this month, Christmas and New Year, I'm going to be transferring and transitioning the entire podcast over onto Substack from the hosting platform that it's on right now. I'm going to make it a little bit easier on myself to get the podcast out there, going to make it a little bit less expensive to produce the podcast and put it out there. And hopefully we're going to grow over on Substack a little bit as well, because it's a unique and interesting platform where you can host both audio, video, and long form writing. And so I've been using it, but I haven't transitioned the whole podcast over there. So if you are an avid listener, if you enjoy the podcast, do me a favor, go over to thestoicresponder.substack.com and sign up with your email address so that you can continue to get this podcast for free and you don't miss any episodes when I transition from my current hosting platform over to Substack. Number two, as I said at the top of the show, if you're looking for a Christmas gift for your loved ones, for someone that you want to introduce Stoicism to, somebody who is a law enforcement officer, a first responder, somebody who's just in a high stress, rapidly evolving job where they could use some mindset medicine on a daily basis, pick up a copy of In Valor 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you get your books. Or if you're really interested in getting a personalized and signed copy, shoot me a message, reach out to me, and I will get a copy signed and personalized to whoever you want it for and out to you in time for Christmas. So, got 2 more episodes for you this week, folks. Get out there, live your lives with valor. Make sure that your thoughts and your words align with your deeds. Oh, and let me leave you with a journal prompt. Do my thoughts and words match my deeds, both on and off the job? Ask yourself that today. Give yourself an honest answer. And if they are not in alignment, if they do not match, make sure that they do so going forward. That's what I got for you, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Until next time, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.